Hello all and welcome back to another Hyp3rblue review. You know, we here at Hyp3rblue are dedicated to finding the highest quality games. We evaluate these games per our rigorous testing criteria developed within the Hyp3rblue R&D department. Today's subject, not to spoil things, but it's a triumph. And let me make a mark here, huge success. Today's feature is a pretty well-known game, Portal. Now, I was really late to the party on this game. I knew all the references, knew all the characters, and knew a lot of the quotes, but I hadn't played this game until 2018. I thought it was an amazing game in 2018, and I replayed the game last year for fun. But did it hold up? Let's find out. Portal was initially released in 2007 as a part of a bundle called the Orange Box. The Orange Box had 5 games, including Team Fortress 2 and some game called Half-Life 2 and several expansions for it. I don't know. That one didn't seem that popular. I'm joking, of course. Anyway, back to Portal. Portal was released separately on various platforms after the Orange Box saw success. Portal is a first-person puzzle platformer that takes place in the Aperture Science Enrichment Center. The protagonist is a player character known as Shell. It's literally a shell for the player to put themselves into. Anyway, Shell is awoken by an artificial intelligence known as the Genetic Lifeform and Disk Operating System, or GLaDOS. GLaDOS awakens Shell to put her through various puzzles, for science. If players are able to overcome GLaDOS' test, then they'll be rewarded with cake. A fantastic motivator if I've ever heard one. The tests make use of simple objects and physics to solve various puzzles. Oh, and the Aperture Science handheld portal device, also known as the Portal Gun. The Portal Gun is able to rip a hole open in time and space in 2 places at once. These holes, or portals, allow players to pass through one to where the other is located. So if a player is isolated on a spot where they can't escape, they can open a portal up underneath them and somewhere near the exit. I also mentioned physics are involved with this game. Sometimes players will need to pick up speed to cross large gaps. This can be accomplished by jumping from a high place into a portal and being launched across the gap. There are also objects players can interact with called companion cubes. These weighted fellas can help by holding down a pressure-sensitive button so players can escape a room. There are also dangers lurking in some of the test chambers. Some rooms have a nasty liquid that can end a player's run, while there are others that have homicidal gun-toting turrets. Luckily, the turrets can be incapacitated by simply picking them up. Alright, now that some of the basics are covered, let's actually evaluate this game using the patented Hyp3rblue evaluation criteria. Alright, first up is challengeability. Portal does an exceptional job at ramping up the puzzle difficulty. They start simple enough, but they get more challenging as the game progresses. They're not too difficult for the casual player, but they do provide some challenge so that people aren't just breezing through the levels. In my opinion, challengeability gets 5 out of 5. The game provides an appropriate amount of challenge that won't leave you frustrated if you messed up. Well, with the exception of a few areas, but I'm ignoring that. That leads me to the longevity section. The game is relatively short, with only 18 levels for players to trek through. The levels range from simple, that is able to be completed within a minute or two, to levels that have multiple twists and turns and areas to explore. There are also bonus levels for players to try out that amp up the difficulty, but not by much. I'll give longevity a 5 out of 5 because it feels long enough without overstaying its welcome. That leads me to the speedability aspects though. Speedability is where Portal suffers. Shell walks at a brisk pace, but can't run. Portals can alleviate some of this, but not every wall can have a portal on it. This, unfortunately, adds a bit of tediousness to the game, especially when it comes to backtracking. Backtracking through levels becomes a big inconvenience in later levels, so the option to run would have been nice. Speedability gets a 1 out of 5 for me. While Shell isn't able to run though, she does have an insanely high endurance stat. Players are able to fall from great heights without taking damage, and she can also take a few shots from enemy gunfire as well. So, character endurance gets a 5 out of 5. Given that Aperture Science spent all of Shell's stat bonuses in the defensive attribute, it's only normal that her other stats suffer. For instance, Shell cannot attack, but if players think with portals, well then all will be okay. Players can pick up any item with great ease, assuming it's an object that the game allows players to pick up. Objects can be dropped on certain enemies to incapacitate them, otherwise you're SOL, that is, sorry out of luck. I already mentioned how players can incapacitate turrets, but there are some enemies that can't be, such as the rocket launcher bots. Those can't be beat from what I've tried, so the offensiveness rating gets a 1 out of 5. Despite having no offensive capabilities, Shell is very aerodynamic. Players are able to send Shell flying across areas if they build up enough speed via portals. In fact, that's the only way to solve certain puzzles, so 4 out of 5 for aerodynamics. The puzzles themselves get another 4 out of 5. They're mostly intuitive, but they can get pretty tedious. Later levels have less surfaces to place a portal on. While this adds to the challenge, it gets old when you miss a jump and have to set everything back up. This is mostly an issue with later levels / challenge stages though, hence why the puzzle mechanic still gets a high mark. I mentioned the test coordinator that is testing Shell within the game. Well, Portal is memorable for 2 reasons. The great puzzles and gameplay, and a great antagonist. GLaDOS, the test coordinator, provides humor and a quick wit through most of the levels. GLaDOS' dialogue is often funny and is the highlight of any stage she, or it, is featured on. Of course, the commentary can get old after a while, so 5 out of 5 for snarky antagonist and 4 out of 5 for sarcastic humor. In terms of game audio, there really isn't any. There are 2 songs that I can remember, and that's Still Alive and the dance version of Still Alive that plays on the radios. While both songs are amazing, the lack of music throughout the levels gets old quick. Granted, this makes sense from a logic point of view given the player character is locked in an isolated maze, but it makes the game drag when there's nothing to listen to through long sections of walking. It would be nice to have the monotony broken up with more snarky responses from GLaDOS from time to time, if music truly wasn't an option. Now I'm going to break the bit for a minute. I originally wrote the script for this review in 2018, and I didn't think the lack of music was much of an issue. This playthrough though, well, the lack of audio was very noticeable. Maybe because I was ultra focused on the puzzle solving aspect the first time I played Portal, and this time I wasn't? I don't know, it's hard to say. Either way though, the audio gets 2.5 out of 5. Speaking of the dance version of the song, it can be heard through random radios located throughout the test chambers. Granted, they're not in every level, and cannot be taken with Shell at the end of a level, but it's a nice break from the silence. Use of radios gets 3.5 out of 5. Okay, we're quite near the end of this evaluation now. Let's evaluate the most important aspect, cake. And, actually, I'm not sure if I can evaluate this. Question mark out of 5. With that being said, let me compile these notes into my computer to calculate the final grade of Portal here. Ah! Ah, dang it. I dropped my notes into an open incinerator. Well, it looks like I'll have to do this the old-fashioned way. Overall, is Portal a good game? Yes. In fact, I'd say it's a great game. The physics-based puzzle solving is as good as it was back in 2007. It's a game I really enjoyed when I first played it in 2018, but I do find it a tad monotonous now. Maybe it's because I knew all the story elements and solutions to the puzzles, I'm not sure. I mentioned this before, but the Steam version of the game has bonus level packs that include challenge stages and 6 redesigned levels from the main game, and those offer a greater challenge, which is always nice. If you haven't played Portal yet, then I highly recommend it. It was released on the Switch recently, so there's no reason to not try it out. I, unfortunately, portaled myself out with this most recent playthrough, but I still think highly of the game. Portal is an impressive game, and if you haven't played it yet, then you're doing yourself a horrible disservice. I give Portal 5 companion cubes out of 5. So, the most important question regarding Portal, though, was the cake a lie? Well, you're going to have to play it for yourself and find out. That does it for this review. As always, thank you for watching. Hey y'all, a beta version demo of my game, Tales of Hyperia the Crimson Knight, is available to play over at my itch.io page. The link is down in the description. The final demo version is set to release by the end of the year, and will see massive improvements and upscaling. Make sure you stay tuned for updates.